My name is Sofia, and if you had met me just a few years ago, you would have thought I had the perfect life. And honestly, I thought so too. I was the kind of girl who believed in fairy tales, in soulmates, and in happily ever afters. He wasn't loud or flashy, but he had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. When we were younger, we'd spend hours talking under the stars, making promises about the future. We talked about leaving town, starting a business, getting a little place with a garden in the back, maybe a dog or two. Tyler started coming home a little later than usual, blaming work or meetings, but I didn't question it. I was too focused on baby names and nursery ideas. I started a little pregnancy journal, writing down how I felt each week, what foods I was craving, how excited I was to feel that first little kick. I held the ultrasound picture in my hand like a fool. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, frozen. And then I turned around and walked out. I imagined reading it one day to our child, showing them how loved they were from the very beginning. He'd hold my hand and say, "You and me, Soph. Always." But for me, it felt like slow suffocation, like I was trapped in a room with no air, surrounded by baby clothes and bottles I'd picked out with love. A little boy who didn't ask for any of this. I would make a life for us. And one day, Tyler would see what he gave up, not through words, not through revenge, but through the life we built without him. So I wiped my tears, packed away the pain, and promised myself something: I would raise this child with love even if I had to do it alone. I'd sit in the nursery, holding tiny onesies against my chest, wondering how someone could just walk away. His clothes, his laptop, even the mug he used every morning, all gone. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. He barely touched my belly. He stopped talking about the future. Some days, he barely talked at all. I chalked it up to stress. I mean, bringing a baby into the world is no small thing. I told myself he just needed space, that things would get better once the baby arrived. I believed that lie for far too long. He didn't beg or cry. He just said, "I don't think I'm ready for this, Sofia. I didn't sign up for this kind of life." I hated myself for it, but I did. I kept waiting for a knock on the door, for a message, for anything. But nothing came. Days turned into weeks. My belly grew, but my heart felt emptier than ever. Those words shattered me. Not because he was leaving, but because he made it sound like our baby was a mistake. Like I was a burden. I clung to those words more than I realized, even when life started to change. I had planned to surprise Tyler with the ultrasound pictures. You could clearly see the baby's tiny fingers this time, and I was glowing with excitement. But when I walked in, he wasn't alone. There was a woman on our couch. Jenna. A girl I vaguely recognized from his past. They weren't doing anything physical, but the energy between them was unmistakable, the kind of closeness you only have when you've crossed a line. I wasn't naive, just hopeful. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, where summer fairs I worked at a local art shop, and Tyler was trying to grow his freelance web design business. Money was tight, but we were happy. Or so I thought. Every morning, I'd make us coffee, and we'd sit on the balcony before starting our days. It felt real. It felt safe. And front porch talks were the norm, and where I met Tyler when I was only 16. He was my first kiss, my first love, my everything. We were the high school sweethearts that everyone secretly rooted for. People used to say we were meant to be, and I believed them with all my heart. Tyler had this effortless charm. We moved in together when we were 24. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small apartment with peeling paint and mismatched furniture, but it was ours. When I found out I was pregnant, I cried, not because I was scared, but because I was excited. I imagined Tyler's reaction, the tears in his eyes, the tight hug, the whispered, "We're having a baby?" But when I told him, his face changed. It was subtle, but it was there, a flicker of panic behind a forced smile. He said the right words, "Wow. That's big news." But something felt off. I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just shocked. Maybe he needed time to process. The first few weeks were okay. But as the months passed, Tyler became more distant. One night, I came home early from a doctor's appointment. He jumped up, stuttering something about her just stopping by, but the way she looked at me said everything. Later that night, he came to our bedroom and confessed. The next morning, he was gone. I was 7 months pregnant, alone, and heartbroken. And the worst part? I still loved him. People say heartbreak feels like drowning. But I didn't have the luxury to break. I had a life growing inside me. That was the moment something shifted inside me. I didn't know how yet, but I would rebuild. The weeks after Tyler left were the hardest I've ever faced. I was in my 3rd trimester, exhausted and swollen, trying to carry both my baby and my heartbreak at the same time. I told close friends that Tyler had needed some space, and I let them fill in the blanks however they wanted. A few friends offered to help, but I could see the pity in their eyes, and that made me feel even smaller. I read parenting blogs late into the night and joined an online group for single moms. But as the contractions got stronger, I realized the reality of it. I was alone. She held my hand when the pain got unbearable and spoke softly when I cried. The name had always been in the back of my mind, even when Tyler and I used to toss around baby names. It felt right, strong and simple. The moment I held him, I forgot about everything else. The betrayal, the loneliness, the broken dreams. None of that mattered now. Not once. No texts, no emails, not even a message to ask if his son was born. I shared photos, memories, little milestones. Writing became therapy. And slowly, other single moms started finding my blog. They sent messages, shared their own stories, and thanked me for being honest. For the first time, I realized my pain had a purpose. My story could help others. That silence spoke volumes. I often wondered if he thought about us, if he ever felt even a shred of guilt. But eventually, I stopped caring. I learned that I was capable of so much more than I had ever given myself credit for. I no longer wondered where he was or who he was with. He had made his choice. And now, I was making mine, to raise a kind, strong, loved little boy who would grow up knowing his worth. Every time someone said, "I don't know how you do it," I'd just smile. Because the truth is, when you have someone depending on you, you find the strength. I didn't need his apology. I didn't need his presence. I had Noah, and he was more than enough. All I saw was this tiny human who depended on me. And I promised him, right there in that hospital room, that he would never feel abandoned. Never feel unwanted. I would give him everything I had. "You're stronger than you know," she said, over and over. And somehow, I believed her. Feedings, diaper changes, late-night cries, it was all a blur. But with every struggle came little victories. The first time Noah smiled in his sleep. The way he curled his fingers around mine. The way he stopped crying when I sang to him. These moments kept me going. They reminded me why I had to keep pushing, even when my body and heart were tired. After hours of pain, tears, and fear, I heard the cry that changed my life. Every dollar mattered. I sold things I didn't need and found ways to stretch every meal. It wasn't easy, but I was determined. I didn't want Noah to grow up feeling like he missed out on anything because his father walked away. And most of all, I didn't want to depend on anyone ever again. My son was born, tiny, pink, and screaming. They placed him on my chest, and I felt something shift inside me. Love, yes. But also purpose. I had never felt more needed or more important in my entire life. There would be no husband to hold my hand, no excited dad pacing the hospital floor. I grabbed my hospital bag, called a cab, and tried to breathe through the pain as we drove through the dark, quiet streets. Hearing their stories gave me some comfort, like I wasn't completely alone in this. But still, when I lay in bed, there were moments I wished things had been different. That Tyler had been the man I thought he was. That my child would have both parents waiting at the hospital when they arrived. But life had other plans. I hated being seen as the girl who got left while pregnant. I didn't want to be anyone's tragedy. Every corner of the apartment reminded me of him. The balcony where we used to drink coffee, the hallway where he'd kiss my forehead before leaving, the bedroom that still smelled like his cologne. And worst of all, the nursery. I had painted it soft yellow before he left, imagining we'd hang mobiles and put together the crib as a team. Instead, I sat there alone every night, folding tiny clothes and wondering how I was going to do this without him. I didn't tell many people what happened. My pride wouldn't let me. One evening, I sat on the floor of the nursery with my hands on my belly. The baby kicked, a strong, solid kick, and I remember whispering, "It's just you and me now." It felt like a moment of truth. No more waiting for someone who didn't want to stay. No more hoping he would change. From that day forward, I started preparing for life as a single mother. I made lists, hospital bags, diaper supplies, pediatrician contacts. Labor started early one morning, sharp pains that woke me up around 3 a.m. I wasn't scared at first. I had read enough to know what to expect. The hospital was bright and busy. Nurses helped me to a room, and a kind woman named Helen stayed by my side. I named him Noah. The first few weeks at home were tough. Sleep became a luxury. Financially, things were tight. I took freelance design gigs during nap times and stayed up late working on small projects. Tyler never called. I started documenting our life on a private blog. It wasn't for followers or fame, just a way for me to write out my thoughts. As Noah grew, so did I. I learned how to install a car seat, how to make baby food from scratch, how to comfort him during a fever. By the time Noah turned 1, I no longer cried over Tyler. And someday, I knew Tyler would see what he lost. Not through angry words or revenge, but through the quiet power of a life well lived. The days turned into months, and I started to find a rhythm with Noah. Life as a single mom was not glamorous. It was full of early mornings, sticky hands, spilled milk, and laundry that never ended. I cut my hair shorter, almost like shedding an old version of me. I built a small website, polished my portfolio, and reached out to old clients. Bit by bit, the projects started coming in. They were small at first, logo designs, social media graphics, but they paid the bills. I worked when Noah napped and after he went to bed. It was hard, but the independence felt good. It felt earned. I cleaned out our apartment and got rid of anything that reminded me of Tyler. I posted pictures of Noah and me at the park, working side by side at my little desk, laughing over pancakes on a Sunday morning. I didn't mention Tyler by name, but I spoke about heartbreak, betrayal, and rebuilding. People connected with it. I got messages from other single moms, from women who were thinking about leaving toxic relationships, from people who just needed hope. Every story I posted, every update, he was there. Silent. Watching from afar. He never said a word, but his presence became a reminder of how far I had come. Just a small gesture, barely noticeable to anyone else. But to me, it was a confirmation. I was no longer taking just small jobs. I had a team of 2 other women who helped with projects. I still never said his name. I didn't need to. The story spoke for itself. People saw the strength, the transformation, and the love that held it all together. We worked from my apartment at first, but soon we rented a shared space. I called it Bright Side Studio because even after the darkest times, there's always a bright side waiting. It was cheesy, but it was honest. He saw us. He saw what he missed. I didn't respond. I didn't like anything back. I let the silence do the talking. He left me broken and pregnant, and now he had to watch me rise without him. There was power in that. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted him to see what he gave up. It was humbling, knowing my journey could inspire someone else. A company I had admired for years was looking for a brand redesign. It's not screaming or exposing someone. It's living well. It's being happy. It's raising a child full of love and growing into a version of yourself you never thought possible. It's knowing they rewatching, knowing they threw you away and now they don't even get a seat at your table. It was a long shot, but I decided to apply. I stayed up until 3 a.m., putting together my proposal. I hadn't heard a word from him, hadn't seen his name pop up anywhere, until now. There it was, staring back at me from the list of viewers. At first, my heart skipped a beat. Not because I missed him, but because I wasn't expecting it. I clicked on his profile. He looked different, more tired, older. His feed was full of gym selfies and pictures with friends, but none of them seemed real. There was no depth, no sign of the man I thought I once knew. I wondered if he was happy. I wondered if he felt any regret. But I didn't message him. I didn't block him either. If he wanted to watch, let him. I poured my heart into it, not just the design, but my story, too. I wrote about building a business as a single mom, about how resilience shaped my creativity. He was talking in full sentences, running everywhere, and had the sweetest little laugh that made everything feel lighter. He didn't know who Tyler was. He had never asked, and I didn't feel the need to explain just yet. He had enough love. My parents, once hesitant about my situation, had come around completely. They doted on him, helped when they could, and finally saw the strength in me they had once overlooked. I didn't expect anything to come from it, but it felt empowering just to try. I donated his old books, tossed out his mugs, and deleted every last photo of us from my phone. They loved my work. They loved my story. They hired me. I didn't want to hold on to the past anymore. I was ready to build something new, not just for me, but for Noah. But there was something beautiful about our little world, even in its chaos. Every day brought a new first, the first time he rolled over, the first time he giggled, his first steps. And each moment reminded me of how far we'd come. I still had nights where I cried from exhaustion, but they were now mixed with tears of pride. I started to gain confidence again, not just as a designer, but as a woman who had survived something brutal and still stood tall. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud of who I was becoming. I slowly started putting myself back together. I also picked up more freelance work. I was a graphic designer before all of this happened, and I decided it was time to take my work more seriously. One afternoon, while Noah napped in his crib, I opened my email and saw something unexpected. To my surprise, they responded. That project changed everything. Not only was it the biggest paycheck I'd ever received, but it also opened doors. More clients followed. More opportunities. I started sharing more of my life online, not for attention, but to show that it was possible to heal. And then, one day, I noticed Tyler had viewed my story. It had been over a year since he walked out on me. Over the next few weeks, I noticed he kept watching. Noah was now 2 years old. One day, I posted a picture of us, Noah on my shoulders, both of us laughing in the sunshine, and Tyler liked it. By now, my small design business had grown into something real. I started doing interviews for women's entrepreneur groups and podcasts. And still, Tyler watched. That's when I realized something. Sometimes, the best kind of justice isn't loud. Noah and I had made it through the storm. And now, every day felt like sunshine. I never expected my life to become something people would talk about, but somehow, it did. It started with a podcast interview I did for a small women's business network. I talked about being a single mom, starting over from heartbreak, and how I built my design studio from nothing. A woman from a national parenting blog reached out and asked if she could feature me. I said yes, nervously. They titled the article, "She was abandoned while pregnant, now she's raising a business and a baby alone." It went viral in a matter of days. I spoke honestly about being left during pregnancy, about feeling invisible, and how I had to dig deep just to keep going for my son. I didn't plan on getting emotional, but when I described holding Noah for the first time, I could feel my voice tremble. It was surreal seeing my name online like that, seeing people describe me as resilient, an inspiration, a fighter. I never thought of myself that way. I almost said no. I was scared of leaving Noah for even a night, scared of standing in front of strangers and telling my most vulnerable moments. But my best friend Lila convinced me. "You've lived through the worst already," she said. "This is just the world finally hearing what you've been through." I had just done what I had to do. I was just a mom who refused to give up. I told them about being pregnant and alone. About crying in the bathroom while feeling my son kick. I only wish I had spoken up sooner. That meant everything to me. I even began teaching an online course about branding in business for beginners. You've really done well. I'd like to talk, if that's okay. I miss Noah. Every step forward felt like a small victory. I had no family cheering me on, no partner beside me. The caption simply said, "Built from scratch, with love." But I had Noah. I had my strength. I had built this life brick by brick. It was about proving something to myself. I could survive the storm. I could raise a beautiful, happy child. I could grow a career out of broken pieces. And the best part? He had a front row seat to all of it and no way back in. About freelancing between bottle feeds. About how every time I thought I couldn't go on, I looked at my child and kept going anyway. He claimed he was a different man now. That he wanted to get to know his son. That he'd seen all the things I'd done and was proud of me. The applause that followed wasn't loud for the sake of noise, it felt deep, like understanding. Sometimes, it's enough to let the truth live in the open and let silence do the rest. I thought maybe people wouldn't relate. But the opposite happened. That one podcast episode was shared thousands of times. Because while my story was being celebrated, I knew Tyler was seeing all of it. He knew it was about him. He didn't follow me, didn't comment, but I saw him in the viewers list constantly. Every story. Every post. Every article that featured me. He was there. Watching. Silently. The comments poured in, messages from women who had gone through the same thing, from people who admired the strength I didn't even realize I had. I was stunned. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to cry. But mostly, I just felt calm. Because now the tables had truly turned. He didn't know my son. He didn't get to call himself dad. He didn't get to waltz back into the life he ran away from. I didn't reply. Suddenly, I was getting messages from journalists, influencers, even small news channels wanting to hear my story. The part that kept getting shared, over and over, was when I said, "He left when I was at my weakest," but that didn't break me, it made me build something stronger. It wasn't about revenge, not really. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel satisfying. And now it wasn't just me and Noah in quiet corners of the internet. It was public. People knew. They didn't know his name, but he did. I got invited to speak at a small business conference in another city. So I went. I stood on stage in a room filled with women, some young, some older, all nodding as I shared my journey. After the talk, a woman in her 50s hugged me and said, "You just told my story." When I got back home, things picked up even more. Clients came faster. The studio was growing. I hired another assistant. One day, I received a message that stopped me in my tracks. It was from Tyler. After 2.5 years of silence, he finally reached out. The message was short: "I've been following your journey." My stomach turned. He missed Noah? The child he never met? The baby he abandoned before even being born? Instead, I posted a photo that night. It was Noah and me making pancakes in our tiny kitchen, flour all over the counter, both of us laughing. He saw it. Of course he did. That's when I knew for certain my success wasn't about proving something to him. Tyler messaged again a week later. This time it was longer. He said he regretted leaving. That he had been scared, immature, and overwhelmed. But I didn't need his pride. I'd built a world without him. A world full of laughter, late-night cuddles, and tiny sticky fingers reaching for me. A world where I was enough. I typed one sentence and hit send. "You left before the story even started, don't expect to write yourself into the ending." He didn't reply after that. And that's how I preferred it. Not every story needs a dramatic confrontation. Let him keep watching. Let him scroll through the life he chose to leave behind. Because I had something better than revenge. I had peace. And I had Noah. Life had started to settle into a rhythm that felt both comforting and powerful. Noah was growing fast, too fast, it felt like some days, and I was juggling being his mother, running my design business, and somehow still finding time to breathe. The hard days were still there, of course. Some mornings I'd wake up exhausted, overwhelmed, wondering if I was doing enough for him. But then I'd look at his little face while he slept, his arms wrapped around his favorite stuffed lion, and everything would settle. I was doing my best, and more importantly, we were okay. Better than okay. Then, one chilly Thursday morning, while sipping coffee at my cluttered kitchen table and answering emails, I noticed a message that made me sit up straight. It was from the editor of a national parenting magazine I'd followed for years. They were running a feature on single mothers who had overcome great odds and created something amazing from it, and they wanted to include me. I blinked at the screen, rereading the message 3 times to be sure. I hadn't pitched them. I hadn't sent in my story. They had found me, through the blog, the podcast, the posts, the quiet trail of words and images I had left behind just trying to survive. I said yes, of course. Nervously. Then came the interview, the photo shoot, even a short video for their website. They wanted to hear everything: how I had been left while pregnant, how I raised my son, how I built my business in between diaper changes and midnight bottle feeds. I told them the truth. I didn't try to sound strong for the sake of it. I told them how some nights I cried on the bathroom floor. How scared I was when the rent was due and I wasn't sure if a client would pay on time, how I felt both incredibly proud and incredibly alone. But I also told them how every bit of pain gave me purpose. I talked about how Noah's first steps gave me more strength than 1,000 motivational quotes ever could. When the article came out, it spread like wildfire. Friends sent me screenshots. Strangers began following my page and sharing their stories with me. And once again, quietly, from the shadows, I saw Tyler's name pop up on the viewers list. I didn't block him. I didn't engage. I just let him watch. And the more I shared about our life, Noah's silly jokes, our small Sunday rituals, the messes and the magic, the more he kept watching. Sometimes it felt like I was performing for him, letting him see the life he lost. But most of the time, I wasn't thinking of him at all. I was just living. A few weeks later, the magazine invited me to speak at a live event in New York, small, intimate, but powerful. It felt like a big deal. At first, I hesitated. I'd never traveled without Noah before, and the idea of standing on a stage still made my stomach twist. But Lila, always my cheerleader, promised to fly with me and take care of Noah during the talk. "You're ready," she said. "You've already done the hardest part. This is just telling the world how you did it." So I went. And I stood in front of 100 women and told my story, from heartbreak to healing. I talked about resilience, about not waiting for someone to save me, about building a life even when you feel broken. I ended with, I didn't need revenge, I just needed freedom. And my son gave that to me. There were tears. Hugs. Handwritten notes. One woman told me she was filing for divorce that week, and hearing me gave her the courage she needed. I flew home tired but full, like something deep in me had shifted. I was no longer the girl who had been left behind, I was the woman who had risen anyway. When we landed, I picked up my phone and saw another message from Tyler. This one was different. Longer. Apologetic. He said he had watched everything, read everything, and couldn't believe the life I'd built without him. He said he was ashamed. That he missed out. That he thought about Noah every day. That he wanted to be involved, if I'd let him. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, Noah asleep beside me, and stared at the message. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I just felt done. I didn't need anything from him, not his apology, not his regret, not his approval. I had already given Noah everything he needed. And maybe one day, when Noah was older, he would ask about his father. Maybe he'd want to know. And when that day came, I would tell him the truth, but I'd also tell him everything we had built on our own. I replied to Tyler with a single line, "You watched it all happen, and you never once showed up when it counted, please stop watching now." I blocked him. For good this time. I didn't want to live my life with someone peeking through the window anymore. We were more than a story to be observed, we were a life, a family, a love that had survived. And I was finally ready to protect it from everything that didn't belong. After I blocked Tyler for good, something inside me settled. It was like closing the final chapter in a book I never wanted to read in the first place. There were no more questions, no more waiting, and definitely no more space in my life for people who only showed up to spectate, not participate. With him finally out of the picture, I could focus all my attention on what mattered most, Noah and our life together. Things started feeling lighter, like I could finally breathe without carrying the weight of someone else's betrayal. Noah was 4 now, full of energy, curiosity, and wild ideas that made me laugh even on the toughest days. Every morning he'd run into my room shouting, "It's morning time, Mommy," like it was the greatest discovery ever made. His joy was contagious. I'd make him pancakes shaped like stars, and we'd eat breakfast while watching cartoons or listening to the silly songs he loved. He was growing into such a kind, thoughtful little boy. One night after I read him a bedtime story, he looked up at me and said, "You're the best mommy in the world." I kissed his forehead, holding back tears, and whispered, "You made me the best mommy." My design business was also growing faster than I expected. More clients came in through word of mouth and social media, and eventually, I had to hire 2 assistants just to keep up with the work. It felt surreal. Just a few years ago, I was scraping by with barely enough to buy diapers. Now I was running a small but thriving company from my apartment, managing a team, and creating things that made people smile. It wasn't just a job anymore, it was a part of me. A friend I met through the parenting community reached out one day with a surprise. Her brother, Daniel, was opening a creative space downtown, part coffee shop, part co-working hub, and they needed someone to handle the design and branding. I wasn't sure at first. It sounded big. But she said she believed in me and that this was the kind of work I was meant for. I said yes. The project took weeks of planning, sketching, late nights, and second-guessing myself. But I loved every second of it. When the space finally opened, it was beautiful, warm wood tones, soft lighting, creative corners for artists, and cozy nooks for dreamers. The launch party was buzzing with excitement, and for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself in front of people. No hiding. No shame. Just me, Sofia, single mom, business owner, designer, and woman who had survived the worst and turned it into something beautiful. Daniel thanked me that night, and I could see the respect in his eyes. It felt good to be seen like that, not as someone's ex or someone's mistake, but as someone whole and capable. A few weeks after the launch, Daniel invited me to coffee, just the 2 of us. I didn't know if it was a date, and honestly, I didn't care. It felt nice to sit with someone who asked about my dreams, not my past. He didn't try to fix me or feel sorry for me. He just listened. He made me laugh, and that alone was more than I'd gotten from anyone in years. We started spending more time together, not rushed or forced, but naturally. He understood my boundaries, especially when it came to Noah. I told him upfront, I'm a package deal, and he said, that's the best kind. For months, we just got to know each other. He never pressured me, never crossed lines, and always showed up when he said he would. It was the first time I felt safe with a man since everything fell apart. Noah liked him too. Slowly, carefully, I let Daniel into our lives. Not to fill a gap or replace anything, but to be part of what we were already building. One sunny afternoon, the 3 of us went to the zoo. Watching them laugh together, Daniel showing Noah the monkeys, Noah clinging to his hand, I realized how much things had changed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about Tyler or proving anything to anyone. It was about healing, love, and creating a future that looked nothing like the past. That night, after Noah fell asleep on the drive home, Daniel carried him to bed without me asking. I stood at the door, watching them, my heart so full I could barely breathe. Later, we sat on the couch, sipping tea, and I told him everything, how it felt to be abandoned, how hard it was to raise Noah alone, how scared I was to open my heart again. He held my hand and said, "You don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to let someone carry a little bit of it with you." I cried. Not out of sadness, but because for once, I didn't have to hold it all in. That was the beginning of something new, something I hadn't expected. Love didn't have to hurt. It didn't have to come with conditions or betrayal. It could be gentle. It could grow slow and steady, like a flower you forgot you planted but suddenly bloomed one morning. I still had scars. I still had fears. But I also had hope. And every time I looked at Noah, I was reminded that I had already done the impossible. I had survived heartbreak, loneliness, judgment, and exhaustion, and somehow, through all of that, I created a life filled with love. Not perfect, not fancy, but real. I knew Tyler might still be out there, still watching from a distance, regretting what he threw away. But he wasn't part of this story anymore. He had his chance. And he chose to walk away. The truth was, I didn't ruin his life, he did. I just chose to live mine without him. And I was finally, truly happy.